Hey everyone, my name is Justin, and it's a great day to talk about the population of the United States of America. What we think of as the United States has been through multiple waves of population and settlement over the last 30,000 years, beginning with Native Americans or First Peoples. But contemporarily, the United States was settled in four primary immigration waves, or large-scale immigrations of a people from one place to another over a short period of time. The first wave was primarily by European settlers who arrived here starting in the early 1500s. This wave includes Spanish soldiers in Florida, Puritans and other religious groups in Massachusetts, and profit-seeking gentlemen in places such as Jamestown, Virginia. The eventual success of these colonies brought tens of thousands more, seeking religious freedom, profit, or simply to have a fresh start in a new frontier. The addition of an estimated 10.7 million African slaves to North, Central, and South America, as well as the Caribbean islands, was the only large forced influx of people at one time in American history, with an estimated 700,000 of those shipped directly to the United States between 1619 and the late 1850s. After the Civil War, emancipation of former slaves drove extensive migrations of Black people across the South, the Midwest, and the West. The second wave of immigration ran from 1815 to the outbreak of the Civil War, and then shortly after the war ended. During this wave, millions of immigrants arrived in America from North and West Europe. Fully 1/3 of the immigrants in this wave were Irish, fleeing two terrible famines and continuing unrest in their home country, which was subjugated or harshly controlled by the English government. In fact, by 1920, fully 4.5 million people from a total population of only around 6 million had emigrated or moved to the United States from Ireland. In addition to the Irish, almost 5 million Germans emigrated to America during this period, settling in the northern Midwest. And over 25,000 people from China had settled in and around San Francisco, California by the 1860s, brought largely by the gold rush. The third wave is, for many in the United States, the immigration movement they know. It is the most well-known and the second largest in the nation's history. During Wave 3, between 1880 and 1920, the United States would receive over 20 million immigrants from all corners of the world, 12 million of which were processed through the doors of Ellis Island in New York, which opened in 1892, and her sister entry point in San Francisco, Angel Island, which processed over 1 million Asian immigrants between 1910 and 1940. Driven by the promise of a concept of personal freedom, a new life, and a job in the rapidly industrializing United States, this large influx created the working backbone for the modernizing American economy. The fourth wave of immigration, primarily from Latin America and Asia, began in 1965 and is still, in many ways, progressing rapidly today. This is the largest wave in American history, with an estimated 30 to 35 million immigrants emigrating or entering the United States from 1965 to the present. These waves brought great diversity of culture, origins, beliefs, traditions, and grew the nation to over 320 million individuals representing a cornucopia of heritages and backgrounds. So that's how most Americans got to America. But where do we live now? In another lesson, we discussed several measures for figuring out where people live, how many of them live there, and why they live there. The first question, figuring out where people live, is called population distribution. Of the roughly 320 million people living in the United States, over 56 million live in a giant urbanized area called the Northeast Corridor. Stretching from Norfolk, Virginia to Portland, Maine, this almost continuous string of cities and settlements creates almost $4.4 trillion annually, or 1/5 of the gross domestic product, or the measure of all goods and services produced within a country during a specific period of time, of the entire United States. This gigantic urban area is referred to as a megalopolis, which is when several large cities or megacities, such as New York City, which is contained in this megalopolis, connect with each other and create one gigantic, heavily populated urban agglomeration or collection. In the Midwest, the cities of Chicago and St. Louis are population centers for different reasons. Chicago's functional region, or the region connected by transportation and economic activities, stretches up and down the west coast of Lake Michigan and takes in areas from 3 states: Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Sometimes referred to as Chicagoland, the greater Chicago area is also considered to be a megalopolis as it takes in multiple other cities and urban areas. Chicago is home to over 9.6 million people and is a powerhouse not only in Lake Michigan trade, but also functions as a transportation hub from the eastern United States to the west. St. Louis, with its famous Gateway Arch, was the jumping off point for most people taking the great journey into the American West. Due to its position at the confluence, or the meeting up of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, St. Louis remains an important passageway for river trade and travel. The southeastern United States contains multiple large urban areas. Our first is an area which has experienced explosive growth very recently, and that's Atlanta. From 2010 to 2020, the population of the area surrounding the city grew at an astonishing 40%. Long known as an epicenter for the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, Atlanta's growth is spurred by its multiple connections to interstate highway systems, a growing entertainment industry — Marvel Studios has a huge presence there — and its concentration of Fortune 500 companies, which is the 3rd largest in the country. These companies were attracted by a city with growth potential, and one of the effects has been that Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport is the busiest in the world based on passenger numbers. The city itself is projected to contain almost 9 million people by 2050. Almost 700 miles south of Atlanta, the great port city of Miami is also a heavily populated economic powerhouse. Hemmed in by the Atlantic Ocean to the east and the Everglades to the west, the metro area is a thin strip running along the coast of Florida. The draw for people is not only tourism, shipping, and the climate, but a rich mixing of multiple Caribbean-influenced cultures, or ethnic enclaves, which are places with a clustered group of people sharing similar cultures in a contained area, with areas of towns boasting names like Little Havana and Tiaidi, or Little Haiti. This area boasts more than 6.5 million people. The expansive West was the great frontier of the United States and saw several spurts of settlement across the Great Plains and the Rocky Mountains. But before those difficult overland treks and the Continental Railroad, ships brought thousands to the cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco. The city of Los Angeles began, as many cities in California did, as a Spanish fortress and outpost, and in the 1880s, the Santa Fe Railroad and tireless promotion by the city supporters began its growth into a powerhouse city of almost 13 million people, annexing both water resources and farming resources along the way to support the gigantic population, the base of the global entertainment industry, and brings in almost 20% of all overseas products into the United States through the port of Los Angeles. San Francisco began as another Spanish fortification, but its deepwater port provided rapid growth for people arriving to search for gold, or to provide services for those who came seeking fortune in the mines and rocks of California. Its growth, along with a trick of geography which provided vast areas of silica sand, allowed for it to be an early technology hub of the United States. Silicon Valley, just south of San Francisco, is a major technological development hub today. The vast Midwest and Western Plains are home to countless small cities, towns, and communities, mostly built as a local or regional hubs for farming or other food-producing activities. While the Great Plains region of the United States grew by almost 7 million people from 1990 to 2000, almost 90% of that growth occurred in metropolitan or city areas such as Kansas City. In fact, much of the rural or underdeveloped areas of the United States have seen a population drop nearing 21% due to the disappearance of family farms and co-ops in favor of business-driven agriculture, and the disappearance of industrial products being produced in factories. A large percentage of the young workforce in America's rural areas and small cities have moved to the already overpopulated urban centers. In the east, the Northeast Corridor megalopolis has an overall population density of about 1,000 people per square mile. As an average, that's pretty dense, but with specific areas within this corridor, it could grow even denser, such as New York City, with an overall population density of 27,013 people per square mile. To give you some context with this number, if the entire United States had the same population density as New York City, the country would hold 102.5 trillion people. As we learned in an earlier lesson, density like this creates its own issues, challenges, and special management issues, from economic development to supporting those in poverty. As a whole, the East is an economic powerhouse, but the level of prosperity doesn't reach everyone, and it doesn't reach everyone equally. In the Midwest, the city of Chicago has an average population density of 11,943 people per square mile, which is less than half of New York City. Chicago's challenges are similar to that of many large urban areas in that the poverty rate is 20.6%, or about 1 in 5 people who live in Chicago do so in hard economic conditions. In Chicago, this has led to crime issues for the city, which are among the most important challenges which the area faces. Similarly, certain areas of St. Louis are hard hit by economic inequality and higher crime and violence rates. At a population density of 5,028 per square mile, St. Louis isn't anywhere near as crowded as some others that we'll discuss, but the real issue is slow growth of the St. Louis area. As the economy was based upon water transportation and Midwest transit, its growth will stem from continuing to search for new opportunities for its residents and to use those opportunities to pull more people to the city. In the South, the city of Atlanta and its exploding population have caused extreme challenges with the city's infrastructure. At 3,861 people per square mile in the metro area, the city's highway and transportation system have become stretched to the limit, with stories of horrific daily traffic jams becoming the norm. As the population is only projected to grow over the next 30 years, the government of Atlanta and Georgia will have to find a way to incorporate new infrastructure to support this expanding population. Additionally, Miami, Florida, Houston, Texas, and Dallas, Texas have also seen huge growth, primarily due to economic opportunities. In Miami, real estate is a huge business as people attempt to buy their own private beach retreat. This metro area has gained over 5 million people in the last 50 years, with a stuffed population density of 12,579 per square mile. Some of the density is due to being sandwiched between an ocean and a gigantic swamp, something that we referred to earlier. In Houston and Dallas, high-tech, petroleum, medical services, and all of the industries connected to them, coupled with a slightly lower cost of living as compared with New York, Miami, or Los Angeles at least, have driven growth in these already gigantic cities. Houston has also gained over 5 million people since the 1950s, but its 3,660 people per square mile density may allow you to think that it isn't as crowded as Miami. While this may be true due to the fact that Houston is located in an area with available land to allow for the population to stretch out, the infrastructure problems, which lead to massive traffic jams and crumbling infrastructure, are also persistent, as is the disparity in economic prosperity, with a poverty rate in the city of over 21%, or 1 in 5 people. Dallas has a slightly higher population density at 3,965 people per square mile, but as with Houston, the city and its metro area continue to expand outward. Dallas is also challenged with similar poverty issues at 18.9% poverty rate and issues facing equity and infrastructure. Additionally, in both of these cities, the fourth immigration wave of Latin American people has also helped to swell the populations, as people who come will usually settle into ethnic enclaves or areas of town in which a majority of people have a similar cultural background to theirs. This transplant has been so successful that Houston is a majority-minority city, in which a majority of the city's population is a represented minority. In the West, most cities are spread out and tend to be far lower in population density, as they were the sparsely populated outposts for farmers, ranchers, and oil workers to come in out of the fields. A great surge in migration to the West, driven by tourism, rugged scenery, and an outdoor atmosphere, has seen this change somewhat. Additionally, the cities of Denver, Colorado, Henderson, Nevada, Seattle, Washington, and San Diego, California have been on the top growth list in the United States for the years of 2000 to 2020. These cities are receiving more people from two sources: overcrowded cities in the East and Midwest, and people moving from small or rural areas in order to find better opportunities. Denver, Colorado has seen a population growth of almost 25% from 2010 to 2020, but has been beaten in the same metric by Seattle, Washington, with a growth rate of over 27%. Henderson, Nevada, a suburb of the Las Vegas area, has seen a staggering 18.7% growth from 2010 to 2020 and demonstrates no signs of slowing. All of these Western cities with rapidly growing populations have at least one challenge in common: water. Over 80% of the American West has been in some stage of drought for the past 2 decades, with up to 25% in a state of exceptional drought, or a prolonged drought where water shortages impact all and farming land and pasture losses are devastating. With a gigantic influx of people into the West, the challenges of water supplies, combined with the long-term effects of a changing climate, could only exacerbate the difficulties to the point where it may reverse this current population trend. The United States is the third largest country by population on Earth. While 2 other countries, China and India, have far more people, 320 million is still really, really big. But who lives here? Well, let's take a look at the U.S.A.'s population pyramid and find out. Your first observation is that it tends to look a little taller and skinnier than some others you may have seen, and you'd be correct for 2 pretty good reasons. Firstly, as a developed country with a large healthcare infrastructure, the tall pyramid indicates that, on average, more people live well into old age than in many other countries around the world. Secondly, a skinny pyramid can indicate a lowering birth rate, which in the case of the United States is also true. In fact, from 1950 to 2020, the birth rate in the USA has dropped from 25 births per 1,000 people to a little over 12 births per 1,000 for a rate of 1.63. With birth rates, the magic number is 2.01, or 2 children per every woman of childbearing age, which is also called the replacement rate. A replacement rate is the number of children needed to continue to replace people in the country and to grow at an acceptable rate for new opportunities and jobs in the future. Countries which have generally older populations with fewer children tend to start having problems filling job vacancies, creating new industries, and maintain a growing economy. The United States of America does have an older population and a falling birth rate, part of a larger trend among European nations as well, which, in part, drives the need for workers from outside the borders of their country in order to fill essential worker roles. This drop in population is part of the spur for the latest wave of immigration from Latin American countries and may spur yet another change in the demographics of the United States and other countries around the world. The United States of America has often been referred to as a melting pot society, a place in which people from multiple places and multiple cultural backgrounds come together to form something new. From our waves of immigration to the Great Migration West, the USA has a plurality of people, races, cultural identities, and aspirations, and many have settled in a place which now represents home to them, whether it be the Western Prairie or the streets of New York, the sunny shores of Miami or Los Angeles to the windswept shores of Lake Michigan, or the sultry southern climes of the Mississippi River. The United States represents a population of many, at the best time a symbol of cooperation and the ability to form something new. As it says on the seal of this country, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Until next time, keep exploring.
Hey, hey.